Hi, boys and girls. It's Teacher Bill. I wanted to read to you one of my very favorite holiday books, and this is by one of my very favorite authors, Dr. Seuss. This is called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. If you've ever read the story before, or if you've ever watched the movie or a video, give me a thumbs up. This is a really good story. All right, I hope you enjoy this one today. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But not the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. That means he didn't really care about people. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he startled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his grinchy fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew. How do you think he's going to stop Christmas from coming? All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They rushed for their toys. And then, oh, the noise, the noise, the noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, the noise, the noise. Looks like all the Whos are celebrating. And the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, they would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They stand hand in hand, and the Whos started singing. They'd sing and they sing and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. For 53 years, I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? There's all the Whos singing. Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. What do you think his idea was? How is he going to stop Christmas from coming? I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. Then he chuckled and he clucked with a Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackled sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. And then the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. And their windows were dark, quite filled with air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. Then he came to the first little house on the square. This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Uh-oh. What do you think he's going to do? Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Uh-oh. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room, he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. And then he stuffed them in bags, and then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk out to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last of Who hash. Uh-oh, he's stealing their food now, so they can't celebrate. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove. Then he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who. Little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cold cup of water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my little sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's more. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And that fib fooled the child, and he patted her head, and she got her drink, and he sent her to bed. When Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, that old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that was left in the house was a crumb even that was too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, their tags, and their tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up on the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-hoo to the Who's. He was the Grinchiest humming. They find out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why? The sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook when he saw was a shocking surprise. What do you think he saw? For every who and down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. Then he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something that he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. The minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food and the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Well, the Grinch couldn't stop Christmas from coming because it's not about just presents. It's about being together and celebrating and enjoying the time with your family. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I'll see you next time. Bye.